Okay, let me ask you this. What's that secret ingredient? The almost magical thing that takes a TTRPG session from just, well, fun to something unforgettable, something people really look forward to every single week. What actually grabs players and keeps them invested, like really invested in their character stories?
That's a great question. It really boils down to, I think, how connected the players feel to the game, to the story. Actually, I was running a game recently, right? Parties investigating weird stuff in a village. Pretty standard. They were, following clues, doing the usual thing. But then the rogue, one of the players, just mentioned offhand how his character grew up in a place like this, felt protective. And bam, I just ran with that. Threw in an NPC from his character's childhood. The whole game just shifted. He got so into it, taking risks he normally wouldn't, and the others. They totally rallied around his personal stake in it all. It just drove home for me how powerful it is when the game really hits something personal for them. That's where the magic is, like you said.
That's a perfect example, really. It ties right into what we're digging into today based on our source material, which is all about, how to get that kind of consistent player engagement in D&D session after session without completely burning yourself out as the DM. We've been looking at this article by Kathy Stone on LitRPG Reads. It's called How to Keep Your D&D Players Engaged Every Session Without Burning Out. Some really solid stuff in there. So for you listening, maybe you're a DM, maybe you're a player, maybe you just find this whole collaborative storytelling thing fascinating. Our mission here is basically to pull out the core ideas from Kathy's piece, give you some actionable knowledge, stuff you can use to really boost that deep player engagement in your own games, make it feel, well, doable, inspiring even.
Yeah, and Stone kicks things off by really breaking down what true player engagement even means. It's definitely more than just, butts and seats. She talks about it having three sort of main pillars. There's active interest, narrative investment, and mechanical satisfaction. And the key thing she stresses is you got to nurture all three. If one's missing, players can start to feel, disconnected mentally, emotionally, or just feeling like their character doesn't really do much.
Okay, let's unpack those. Active interest. To me, that sounds like the mental energy, right? When players are leaning in, contributing, it's their focus, their willingness to actually jump in, work together, maybe even push the story in unexpected ways, not just reacting. You see it when players are like actively brainstorming or they just roll with the punches when something weird happens.
Exactly. It's that mental presence, that eagerness, not just engaging with the DM, but importantly with each other too. When they're actively interested, they pipe up with ideas, they voice what their character's thinking or feeling. They just generally seem tuned in to what's happening right now, the challenges you put in front of them.
Right, the narrative investment.
Yeah.
That's got to be the emotional core, where players genuinely start to care about the story, the world, the characters their own, the NPCs, all of it.
Yeah.
They need to feel like their choices actually, matter. Consequences are real.
Absolutely. That investment really grows when they see their decisions, big or small, echoing back through the story. When the ripples of their actions affect NPCs they know or change the fate of a place they visited, that's when it gets personal. Emotionally personal. They develop a real stake in the world, What happens to it matters to them.
And the third one, mechanical satisfaction. Okay, so this is about the game itself, the rules, the character sheet stuff, like enjoying using their character's cool abilities.
Yeah.
That feeling when your build finally pays off or a specific power just works perfectly in a situation.
Yes, exactly that. It's the payoff, right? For all the time they spent choosing spells, feats, figuring out how their character works, when the fighter pulls off that perfect trip attack or the wizard finds just the right spell to, bypass a magical ward, it feels good. It gives them that sense of accomplishment, reinforces why they built their character that way. Their specific skills made a difference.
The article lays out some really helpful signs your players are engaged. It's a good list. Things like bringing up stuff that happened sessions ago, taking notes, that's always a big one. Shows they're tracking things. And, the dream, players actually staying off their phones during the game. But also, players starting role-play scenes themselves, asking smart questions about the world, making decisions based on their character, not just optimal play. Oh, and planning stuff between sessions. If they're doing that, they're hooked.
Yeah. What I like about that list is how broad it is. It shows engagement isn't just one thing. It covers the active stuff during the game, sure, but also that kind of thoughtful stuff that happens outside the session. Even like the body language players physically leaning in when things get tense. That's pure immersion right there.
And Stone makes a really good point. Engagement isn't like a constant high. It's going to dip sometimes. That's natural. But the key is the DM's role, right? To sort of rekindle that spark using the story, using challenges that fit the characters, building those connections, basically creating those moments people talk about afterwards.
Which leads directly into what the article calls the core secret, the fundamental thing for building that deep engagement. And it's deceptively simple, really. Make the game about them, about the player.
Yes, that clicked for me too.
Yeah.
It's not about showing off your amazing world building that nobody connects with or your super intricate plot. It's got to be about the players, their characters, and how they affect the world you've built.
Precisely. Engagement just skyrockets when players get that feedback loop.
Okay.
When they see their choices aren't just, flavor text, they actually steer the ship. The world reacts to what they do in ways they can see and feel.
It's changing that dynamic, isn't it? From the DM being the sole director and the players just actors hitting their marks, to something more collaborative, where PC backstories or some random thing they decide to do on impulse can actually change everything, have real consequences.
The article nails it, I think, calling memorable campaigns patchworks of these player-driven moments. It's less about sticking rigidly to your plan and more about letting the player's actions and choices weave the actual tapestry of the story as you go.
And Stone gives a whole toolkit, basically. DM tricks to prioritize players. Really practical stuff, like actively weaving bits of character backstory into your main plots, into side quests. It shows you're paying attention, you value what they brought to the table. Being flexible is huge, too. Adjusting your plan's story arcs based on how players react or what they choose to do shows their input actually shapes things, and creating NPCs whose goals are tangled up with the player's goals or histories. Instant relevance right there.
Absolutely vital with those NPCs. They shouldn't just be, walking signposts or quest dispensers. Give them their own lives, their own motivations. And maybe those motivations clash or align with the players in interesting ways. Like, say a player has history with some shadowy guild. A random shopkeeper might just happen to have that guild symbol tattooed on their arm. Suddenly, it's personal.
I also like the focus on spotlight moments, making sure everyone gets a chance to be the star for a bit. Not just the loudest player or the character with the flashiest spells. Tailor moments to let each unique character shine. And listening for those little offhand comments players make. And then finding a way to bring them back later, make them relevant. That's genius. It tells players you're really listening, that even the small stuff matters.
It builds such a strong sense of being, seen by the DM. And the advice about using wrong choices, that's gold. Don't just punish mistakes. Use them as fuel for the plot. It reinforces consequences, sure, but in a way that keeps the story moving. Sometimes the best twists come from the party zigging when you expected them to zag,
Giving every player their own personal arc running through the campaign. That's fantastic. It ensures everyone has skin in the game beyond the main quest. And that idea of subtly tweaking world details based on what players revere about their characters. Like, a character mentions loving a specific rare flower from back home, and weeks later, that flower pops up in an unexpected druid grove. That makes the world feel incredibly alive, responsive.
It creates amazing immersion. And then there are the consequences themselves, big and small. Constant reminders that actions matter. It doesn't have to be world-shattering every time. Just an NPC changing their attitude towards the party based on a past deed can be really effective. And maybe occasionally reminding the group, hey, remember when you did X? Well, this is happening now because of it. Reinforces that cause and effect.
Encouraging some inter-party stuff, too, like healthy conflict or strong alliances forming between the characters themselves. That adds so much drama. And reaching out between sessions, even just a quick message, maybe a short solo scene for someone, that's going above and beyond to personalize it.
Offering unique rewards tied to what actually motivates that specific character, instead of just +1 swords for everyone, shows you understand them. And sometimes, just letting a player describe their own cool action or paint a picture of the scene from their character's perspective gives them real ownership.
Add all that up, like the article says, and the world stops feeling like a static backdrop. It becomes this living, breathing organism that reflects the players. And when players feel that responsiveness, it's just compelling. Engagement naturally follows.
And that same responsiveness is key for crafting hooks that actually work, too. The article really hammers this home. The best hooks are personal, tied directly into a character's backstory, their goals, their fears.
Exactly. You can throw out go kill the goblins quests all day, and they might be fine.
Yeah.
But when a hook taps into, say, a character's guilt over a past failure, or their desperate hope for something, or that NPC rival they hate, that's when it lands. It feels urgent, personal, like it was written just for them.
It's about making the stakes feel real on that individual level. Like the world itself is speaking directly to that character, presenting a challenge or an opportunity that just resonates with who they are, where they came from, what they want.
The article gives some great examples, tailored for different classes, just to give a taste. For a rogue, maybe it's a long-lost contact showing up needing help, tangled in something dangerous from their shared past. For a cleric, perhaps discovering a relic tied to their faith, but it has some kind of dark secret attached that makes them question things. Wizard, maybe an old rival starts messing with forbidden magic nearby.
Yeah, exactly. Fighter. Their old mercenary crew shows up, and there's bad blood there. Druid. A blight starts corrupting a place they feel connected to. Paladin. Tasked with protecting someone who once wronged them, testing their code. Bard. An old song holds a clue to a current mystery. The examples go on, covering pretty much every class, even general hooks based on shared NPCs from session 0. It really shows how powerful that personalization is.
It keeps coming back to that idea of narrative gold, hidden in player backstories. As a DM, if you mine that, if you build adventures around those personal details, you're going to create hooks that players can't resist. They'll be instantly engaged.
And once you've got them hooked, the next big piece for keeping that fire going is player agency. That feeling, that knowledge, really, that their decisions genuinely shape what happens next.
Agency. The article calls it the kindling for the fire of engagement. I like that. It's about offering real choices, not just like fake doors. Choices with teeth, potential for success, potential for things to go sideways, and making sure those choices lead to visible consequences, good or bad.
Those consequences are what build that emotional investment we keep talking about. When players see their decisions literally change the world, maybe a town thrives because they helped it, or an alliance shatters because of a choice they made, or even the map itself changes. They become deeply invested in what happens next because they helped cause it.
The article has this really neat table breaking down different kinds of choices and their payoffs. Things like narrative influence, like actually changing a town's fate, tactical rewards, choosing stealth versus alt and seeing the results, interpersonal drama siding with one NPC over another, or even friction within the party, moral dilemmas forcing tough calls that shape the character, and even factional world building, deciding to join a guild or accept a noble's patronage and seeing how that changes their standing.
What's great about that table is it shows the variety. Consequences aren't just about combat outcomes or loot. They can be social, moral, strategic, world-shaping. Showing players that their choices ripple out in all these different ways builds immense trust. They become eager to make the next choice just to see what happens.
Okay, shifting gears just a little bit, but still related to player investment. The article talks about mechanical buy-in. So it's not all about story. Players spend real time picking spells, abilities, learning how their character actually plays.
Exactly right. And as the DM, you absolutely have to, as the article puts it, let them taste the fruits of that labor. You need to design situations, challenges, and counters where those unique character mechanics get to shine. Don't let cool class features just sit on the character sheet unused. Weave opportunities for them into the game.
It's about creating those moments, right, where the rogue's lockpicking is the only way forward. The fighter's shield bash is what saves the day. The wizard deciphering that ancient rune is critical. The bard talking their way past the guards is the key.
Yeah.
When you tie the mechanics directly to narrative success like that, it energizes the whole table.
Yeah, and the article lists a ton of great examples for this mechanical spotlighting. Things like designing a heist specifically for the rogue's skills, an environmental puzzle only the druid can really figure out, a tough fight that lets the fighter showcase their endurance, an ancient library where the wizard's knowledge is essential.
And it keeps going. Social encounters perfect for the bard's charm, obstacle courses for the monk's mobility, situations where the warlock's pact actually matters. A challenge only the barbarian's raw strength can overcome. Puzzles solvable by the artificer's inventions. Archery contests for the ranger. Moral choices tied to the cleric's faith and skills. And just generally rewarding players when they use any class feature in a clever, unexpected way.
The core idea is simple. Respect the mechanics, design for them. When you do that, you're not just making the game more tactically interesting, you're deepening that emotional investment. Players feel like the choices they made about their character mechanically actually matter in the story.
And finally, the article brings it all together by talking about the social side, the table atmosphere, social contracts, session flow. Because even the best adventure can just fall flat if the vibe at the table is off, right? If people feel ignored or bored or uncomfortable.
That unspoken agreement, the social contract of the group, is so foundational for engagement. And it really starts before the game even begins, with session zero. That chat is crucial. Setting expectations, talking about tone, boundaries, finding out what players are actually excited about, it builds trust from day one.
And then during the campaign, keeping an eye on pacing is key. Knowing when to push, when to pause, when to take a break. Allowing a bit of side chatter, sometimes the best RP moments come from that, but keeping it focused and consciously balancing the spotlight, making sure everyone feels involved, not just letting one or two players dominate.
The article has a bunch of practical table strategies for this. Good reminders. Things like rotating scene focus deliberately, using initiative order, sometimes even outside combat, just to give everyone a turn, having designated RP windows, taking regular breaks, obviously, checking in with quieter players, letting players kind of tap out if a scene isn't relevant to them, celebrating those cool player-driven moments.
Setting guidelines for side talk, signaling scene changes clearly, encouraging little debriefs after sessions, like roses and thorns, what worked, what didn't, maybe even instituting faster decision-making in combat to keep energy up, sharing table tasks sometimes, and of course having safety tools like an X card available and understood. That's just baseline for a safe, engaging space.
Yeah, it really all boils down to communication, doesn't it? Talking with your players, listening to their feedback, being willing to adapt. DMs who do that consistently tend to have the most engaged groups, in my experience.
So, wrapping it all up, the article's final point is that engagement isn't one single trick. It's more like a living culture you build at your table.
Yeah.
It's a philosophy running through everything your prep, your story design, how you interact. And that core philosophy, again, is actually pretty simple. Make the game about the players.
Weave their stories in, give them real choices with real impact, create moments for their characters to be awesome, using their unique skills. It's about shifting your role, maybe, from just being the storyteller to being more of a facilitator, empowering them to be the heroes or villains, whatever their story is.
Because, like the article says so well, engaged players are the ones who make those unforgettable stories together. The ones you'll all be talking about years later, the best campaigns. They aren't always the ones with the fanciest plots. They're the ones where every single player walks away feeling like their character, their choices, they mattered.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment to think about how these ideas connect with your own games. Whether you're usually in the player seat or behind the DM screen, how does this resonate with your experiences?
And we definitely want to give a big thank you to Kathy Stone and everyone over at LitRPG Reads for putting these insights out there. Great stuff. And of course, a shout out to Paul Bello, fine fellow indeed.
We'd genuinely love to hear from you all too. What works at your table? What are your go-to strategies for keeping players engaged and excited? Drop your thoughts, your stories, your own tips in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.